He never complained, not when they ignored him, not when they laughed behind his back, not even when life kept taking from him, day after day, without giving anything in return. People in the village knew him as Rahim, the quiet boy, the one who spoke less, worked more, and somehow always stayed in the background. If you ask anyone about him, they would shrug and say, "He's harmless, just not meant for anything big." And for a long time, Rahim believed that too. Every morning before the sun rose, Rahim would walk down a narrow dirt path to the marketplace. The air would still be cold, the sky painted in soft shades of blue and orange, and the world felt peaceful, but inside him, there was always a quiet storm. He worked at a small fruit stall owned by a man named Hakim, a sharp-eyed businessman with a louder voice than necessary and a habit of reminding people exactly where they stood. "Faster, Rahim," Hakim would snap. "Customers don't wait for slow hands." Rahim never argued, he simply nodded and worked faster. He carried crates heavier than his own strength allowed, he arranged fruits until they looked perfect, he smiled at customers who barely noticed him, and at the end of each long day, he walked home with just enough money to survive, but never enough to change anything. Silence became his habit. But silence, when held for too long, doesn't disappear, it builds. At home, things weren't any easier. His father had passed years ago, leaving behind a small broken house and a responsibility Rahim was never ready for. His younger sister depended on him, her school fees, her food, her future, it all rested quietly on his shoulders. At night, when the village grew silent, Rahim would sit outside under the dim glow of a flickering lantern. He would stare at the stars and think thoughts he never said out loud. What if this is all my life will ever be? That question stayed with him, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like everything else. Days turned into months, months into years. Rahim grew older, but nothing else changed. Same stall, same orders, same tired walk home. But something inside him was changing, slowly, invisibly. One afternoon, during the peak of summer, the marketplace was overflowing with noise, vendors shouting, children running, coins clinking, deals being made. Rahim stood behind the stall, wiping sweat from his forehead, when he noticed something unusual. A man across the street. He wasn't loud, he wasn't shouting like the others. In fact, he barely spoke at all, yet people gathered around him. Curious, Rahim watched. The man was selling something simple, dates, but not like everyone else. He offered samples. He smiled, but not in a desperate way. He spoke calmly, confidently, and most importantly, he owned every second of his presence. People listened to him. They trusted him. And they bought from him. Rahim felt something shift inside his chest. Not jealousy, not anger. Awareness. For the first time, he saw the difference. It wasn't just about working hard, it was about how you showed up, how you carried yourself, what you believed about your own worth. That night, Rahim didn't sit quietly as usual. He replayed the scene in his mind again and again. Why him, and not me? The question hit differently this time. Not with doubt, but with possibility. The next morning, something small changed. When Rahim arranged the fruits, he didn't just stack them, he made them look inviting. When customers came, he didn't just serve them, he spoke, softly, yes, but with intention. Try this one, he said to an old man, offering a slice. It's fresh today. The man paused, surprised, then smiled. It was a small moment, almost nothing. But to Rahim, it felt like everything. Days passed, and Rahim kept experimenting. Small changes, small risks, small steps outside the silence he had lived in for years. At first, Hakim noticed. What are you doing? He asked sharply. Just do your job. Rahim nodded, but this time, something was different. He didn't stop. Because deep down, he had realized something most people never do. Silence isn't strength if it's hiding fear. Weeks later, Rahim saved a tiny portion of his earnings, not much, just enough to try something risky. One evening, after the market closed, he bought a small basket of fruits with his own money, not from Hakim, from a farmer on the outskirts of the village. The next morning, instead of going straight to the stall, Rahim stopped near the entrance of the marketplace. His hands trembled. His heart raced. What if I fail? The thought came instantly. But another thought followed. What if I don't try? For years, fear had kept him silent, but now, that silence felt heavier than the risk. So he sat down, placed the basket in front of him, and waited. At first, no one noticed. People walked past like he didn't exist, just like before. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed. Then a child stopped. How much? The boy asked, pointing at a fruit. Rahim swallowed his fear. Take one, he said gently. Taste it first. The boy took a bite. His eyes lit up. Within minutes, his mother came over, then another customer, then another. Something was happening. Not fast, not dramatically, but real. By midday, Rahim had sold everything. Every single fruit. He stared at the empty basket, his hands shaking not from fear this time, but from realization. For years, he thought he had nothing. But the truth was, he had just never used what he had. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Rahim continued. Small basket became a larger one, the larger one became a cart, the cart became a small stall. People began to recognize him, not as the quiet boy anymore, but as the honest seller, the one who offered quality, the one who respected customers, the one who had changed. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. Hakim walked up to his stall. Older, tired, less confident than before. I need help, Hakim said quietly. Rahim looked at him, the same man who once controlled his time, his income, his life. But Rahim didn't feel anger. He felt clarity. Because he understood something now. Power doesn't come from speaking loudly, it comes from knowing your worth. I can't work for you, Rahim said calmly, but I can show you how to build your own again. Hakim lowered his gaze. For the first time, the roles had changed. Not because Rahim fought, but because he finally stopped hiding. This isn't just Rahim's story. It's yours too. Because somewhere in your life, you've been silent. Holding back, waiting, doubting. Telling yourself, this is just how things are. But what if it's not? What if the only thing standing between you and change is the version of you that refuses to step forward? Rahim didn't become successful overnight. He didn't suddenly become fearless. He just made one decision. To stop letting silence control his life. And that changed everything. So if you've been waiting for the right time, the right opportunity, the right permission, this is it. Start small. Speak up. Take the risk. Because the life you want isn't waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to move. And once you do, everything changes.